This week we learning Parsha Chukat. First, the content as usual. Moses is taught the laws of the red heifer, which is the pure red cow, whose ashes purify a person who has been contaminated by contact with a dead body. Then the Parsha switches from the laws of the red heifer and the whole procedure to the narrative of what is going on. After 40 years of journeying through the desert, the people of Israel arrive in the wilderness of Zin. Miriam passes away and people lose access to Miriam's water well, so they are thirsty for water. God tells Moshe to speak to a rock and to command the rock to give water. Moshe gets a little bit angry with the rebellious Israelites, children of Israel, and strikes the stone instead of speaking to it. Water comes out eventually, but Moshe and Aaron both are told that neither of them will enter the promised land. Then we learn about Aaron passing away, dying at Hor Hahar. This is the mountain Hahar, and is succeeded as a high priest by his son Eleazar. Venomous snake attacked the Israelite camp after yet another eruption of discontent in which people were speaking against God and against Moshe. So, the story repeats itself. And God tells Moshe to, and obviously what happens is people die from those venomous snakes. So Hashem tells Moshe to place brass serpent upon a high pole, and all who will gaze upward to the Shamayim, to heavenward, will be healed. People eventually sing a song in honor of the miraculous well, which obviously they have now, that provided them with water in the desert. After that, Moshe leads people in battles against the Amorite kings, Sihon and Og, who basically initially the Israelites asked them, those kings, simply for the rites of passage, to pass through their land on the way to the promised land. But they refused, and they decided to prevent Israel to pass through their territory. As a consequence, they were conquered. So the Israelites conquered their lands which lie east of Jordan. So now they finish up on the eastern bank of Jordan River. And that's the end of the Parsha. This week I was thinking about what am I going to say on Chukat, and I knew the content, and I knew that the main part of it has got something to do with death of Miriam and Aaron and the laws of the red heifer. But on top of this, the father of our rabbi, Rebbe Ullman, has passed away. And every time one goes to a funeral, which I did, sitting in there in the Havra Kadisha, I couldn't stop thinking about life and death and what it all means. And incredibly, I found that I will try to bring to you the wisdom of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. May God bless his soul, where he is talking in one of his articles about the laws of the red heifer. He says that the command of Para Aduma, the red heifer, with which our parsha begins, is known as one of the hardest mitzvot to understand. It's very hard to understand the whole logic of it. The opening words of it, Zot Chukat HaTorah, are taken to mean that this is a supreme example of the Chukim, of the in the Torah. This is the type of laws which the logic is obscure to us, to people, and very difficult, if not impossible, for us to understand. It was a ritual for purification of those who had been in contact with a certain forms or close proximity to a dead body. A dead body is a primary source of impurity, and there are many reasons to that. And the defilement it caused to the living meant that the person so affected could not even enter the precinct of the tabernacle or the temple later on until he or she is cleansed in a process that lasted for 7 days. A key element of this purification process involved a priest, a Kohen, sprinkling the person affected by this impurity on the 3rd and the 7th day with a specially prepared liquid known as the water of cleansing. What was it? First, a red heifer had to be found. A red heifer is a red cow, which is absolutely pure. There is not a single strand of hair on the cow which is other than red. And the heifer must not have any blemishes, as I said, had never been used for any work to perform. So a yoke had never been placed on it. This red heifer was ritually killed, slaughtered, and burned outside the camp. Then cedar of wood, hyssop, and a scarlet of wool were added to the fire, and the ashes collected and placed in a vessel containing living fresh water. Fresh water. It was this that was sprinkled on those who had become impure by contact with death. But it makes no sense to us how this sprinkling of this water mixed with all of those ingredients, including the ashes and all of this, how does it make a person pure? Sure, we cannot aspire to the kind of a cosmic wisdom that would allow us to see the point and the purpose of the whole process. Maybe, as Rav Sadia Gaon put it, it is a command issued for no other reason than to reward us for obeying. So that we don't understand, but we obey, we follow. Well, not entirely plausible, I think, and many probably will agree with me. Another view adopted by Nachmanides in the 13th century and further articulated by Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch in the 19th century is that the Chukim were laws designed to teach the integrity of nature. Nature has its own laws, domains, and boundaries. So to cross those boundaries is to dishonor the divinely created order. And by doing that, we threatening the nature itself. So we do not combine, for instance, animal wool and vegetable linen textiles, or mix animal milk, which is a symbol of life, with animal death, with meat. As for the red heifer, Rabbi Hirsch was saying that the ritual is to cleanse humans from depression brought about by reminders of human mortality. Yes, we do get scared. I remember as a kid, myself, and then later my younger brother, when we learned that one day we will die, it was a bit sad for us. It was difficult for us to accept this. For instance, in Ecclesiastes, it says the following: the fate of a man is the fate of a cattle. The same fate awaits them both. The death of one is like the death of the other. Their spirits are the same, and the preeminence of man over beast is nothing, no difference. For it is all shallow breath. All end in the same place, and all emerge from dust, and all go back to dust. Yes, our physical bodies, just dust. The knowledge that we will die robs us of any sense of meaningfulness of our life. We have no idea what will happen after our death, and to what we have achieved in life. What this is all about. Death makes mockery of even virtue. The hero may die young, while the coward, for instance, lives to an old age. And bereavement is tragic in many ways, in different ways. To lose those whom we love is to have the fabric of our life torn apart, perhaps sometimes for a long time or irreparably. Death defiles in the simplest and starkest sense. Mortality opens an abyss between us and God's eternity. That's what Rabbi Sachs was saying. It is this fear, which is existential and elemental, to which the rite of the heifer is addressed. The animal itself is the starkest symbol of pure animal life, untamed, undomesticated, wild. The red, like the scarlet of wool, is the color of blood, the essence of life. The cedar, the tallest of the trees, represents vegetable life. The hyssop symbolizes purity. All of these were reduced to ash in the fire, which is a powerful drama of mortality. The ash itself was then dissolved in water, symbolizing continuity, the flow of life, and the potential of rebirth. The body dies, but the spirit flows on, goes on. Spirit is ageless, eternal. A generation dies, but another is born. Lives may end, but life itself does not. Those who live after us continue what we began, and we live on in them, in our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on. Life is a never-ending stream, and a trace of us is carried onward into the future. This is what it's all about. The person in modern times who most deeply experienced and expressed, who felt very seriously about all of this, was Leo Tolstoy, who told this story in his essay called A Confession. By the time he wrote it, in his early 50s, he had already published two of the greatest novels ever written, War and Peace, and Anna Karenina. His literally legacy, his mark in history was already made. It was secure. His greatness was universally recognized everywhere. He was married with children and he had a large estate. He wasn't poor. His health was good, yet he was overwhelmed with sense of the meaninglessness of life in the face of the knowledge that we will all die. He quoted Kohelet and at length and contemplated actually suicide at some points. The question which haunted him was, is there any meaning in my life that will not be annihilated by the inevitability of death which awaits for me? He searched for an answer in science, but all it told him was that in the infinity of space and the infinity of time, infinitely small particles will mutate with infinite complexity. Come on, science deals and causes only with the simple factors, cause and effect. There is no purpose and meaning in science. In the end, he concluded that only religious faith rescues life from meaninglessness. What is needed is something other than rational knowledge. Faith is the force of life. If a man lives, then he must believe into something. If he doesn't understand the illusion of the finite, he is bound to believe in the infinite. And without faith, it's impossible to live. That is why, to defeat the defilement of contact with death, there must be a ritual that bypasses rational knowledge. Hence the rite of the red heifer, in which death is dissolved in the waters of life, and those on whom it is sprinkled are made pure again, so that they can enter the precincts of Shekhinah and re-establish contact with eternity. We no longer have the red heifer, and its 7-day purification ritual is not used today. But we do have Shiva, which is 7 days. The 7 days of mourning during which we are comforted by others and thus reconnected with life. Our grief is gradually dissolved by the contact with our friends and our family, as the ashes of the heifer were dissolving grief in the living water. We emerge after Shiva still bereaved, but in some measure cleansed, purified, able again to face life. I believe that we can emerge from the shadow of death if we all ourselves to be healed by the God of life. To do so, though, we need the help of others. Talmud is saying many times, I read it many times in different places, a prisoner cannot release himself from prison. It took a coin to sprinkle the waters of cleansing on the person defiled by death. It takes comforters today to lift our grief. But faith from the world of Chukim, deeper than the rational mind, can help cure our deepest fears. The Kabbalists are saying, when a Kabbalist is faced on his deathbed, he is greeting death with a smile. Shabbat Shalom.
למען החי למען החי ורעי אדם בנה שלום לך למען החי ורעי למען החי ורעי אדם